college students, what was the creepiest roommate experience you've ever had? My autistic roommate Craig won't stop whispering at 3 a.m. This has been going on for the past few months, and I just found out the creepy reason why. It all started with Craig running into the room in the middle of the night. I was doing what a lot of men do, in the bed with lotion and tissues around their private area. Luckily, our dorm is pretty big, so we have our rooms separated. He sat on the bed next to me for the next 20 minutes, muttering the same thing over and over. She keeps yelling at me. She is from beneath our floors, where we stand. She says she shouldn't be here. After getting over my initial shock, I tapped him with my lotion-covered hand and asked, "What do you mean underneath your floor? Some chick you never called back?" He stared at me while muttering that same phrase over and over again. I scooted to the other side of my bed and started to ask him if he could just come back the next morning, but within a blink of an eye, he hopped on my lap and said, "She wants me dead. She was never grateful, and she wants me dead." He got off the bed and walked out the door and left me confused for the rest of the night. When I woke up the next morning, Craig was lazily eating a sandwich, watching TV. A couple of minutes of awkward silence later, Craig cleared his throat and said, "Sorry man, smoked way too much weed." I gave him a half-hearted laugh, and the silence continued. I don't know when I fell asleep. I smoked a fat bowl and started watching a movie, but I woke up to the sound of knocking. With a jerk, I woke up and saw that it was dark outside. With a grunt, I pushed myself off of the couch and checked the time. 3:15 a.m. Shit, the sound of knocking came again, so I walked up to the door and opened it, but there wasn't anyone there. While I was closing the door, I heard a loud knock coming from inside of Craig's room. I rushed to his room and threw open the door, right when I heard a blood-curdling scream from all around his room. I tried looking all around his room, but after a couple of seconds of looking around, I heard the front door opening. I slowly walked out of his room and saw Craig looking at me with a confused look on his face. With a sheepish grin, I said, "I wanted to find your Sherlock bowl. Mine is all clogged now." He grinned and walked into his room and came back out with his bowl before saying, "I'll just keep this out in the living room now. Just let me know if you need to go into my room." I gave him a nod and he walked into his room. After a small bowl, I walked into my room and fell asleep while watching a couple of dumb YouTube videos. The sound of harsh whispering broke me out of my slumber. I looked at the alarm clock and saw that it was 4 in the morning. I slowly trudged out of my room and followed the voices. When I got up to Craig's room, I could hear everything being said. "Craig, leave. Don't leave. You shouldn't be here, but you can't leave. Why do you keep yelling at me?" The next voice sent a wave of fear I have never felt before. It belonged to a woman, but every word she said was a mixture of a whisper and a scream, as well as anger and sadness. "Let me go. Just let me go. Why do you insist on keeping me here?" It was silent after that. I heard footsteps approaching the door, so I ran back into my room. I couldn't fall back asleep that night. Thoughts kept racing through my head, and every couple of minutes I could hear them whispering again. Around 9 yesterday morning, I got out of bed and threw on a hoodie before walking into the living room. Craig was sitting on the couch, staring at the sandwich in his hand. I sat next to him and said with a forced chuckle, "I think I'll be going back to my parents' house, dude." He looked up at me and stared at me before saying, "You can just tell me the truth. Shit is weird now. You hear the whispering just like I can hear you walk up to my door in the middle of the night. I understand." With a sigh, I walked out the door and rode my bike to school. That whole day, I wanted to do the best I could in class, but I was far too distracted. Who was Craig talking to? Why didn't Craig just let her leave? How was he acting so casually about it in the mornings? I got off of class around 7 p.m. and pedaled as quickly as I could and got home around 5 minutes later. Craig didn't come home till 9 p.m., so I ran into his room and started to look for anything that could answer my questions. It didn't take me long. As I walked up to his bed, I felt a small knock come from underneath my feet. I got to my knees and saw a small gap in between a couple of floorboards. I grabbed a pen from Craig's desk and jammed it into the gap and pulled up. A small section of the floor rose up, and I grabbed the front of the section and propped it all of the way open. I honestly thought I was going to find a woman in the hole, but instead there was just a small lunchbox. I grabbed the lunchbox and slowly opened it before looking inside. A thin layer of ash covered the bottom of the lunchbox. I closed it back up and started to put it back in the opening when I saw a small piece of paper. "To Mom, you will always live with me. I have always loved you, but you did not love me. You yelled at me and told me to become something worthwhile. Well, now you're worthless. You're just powder. No one knows where you are. You're just trash now. Trash in a hole that no one will find. Enjoy the eternity you will spend in the little makeshift hell I created you. I don't care if you keep screaming at me because I control you now." I shoved the note back into the hole and closed it. Craig came home a couple of hours later. He's in his room now talking to his mother, and she is talking to him back. I tried to listen in on what they were saying from my bedroom last night, but no matter how hard I tried, I could not hear anything. I managed to sleep for a couple of hours, but when I woke up this morning, I felt even more exhausted than I did before I slept. I'm packing my stuff up now. I don't want to be here.